Good morning and welcome to Barb's Craft Room. Today I'm going to attempt to show you how to make a stack of tags ready to use, embellish, and whenever you're ready. Okay? So what I did is I found a whole bunch of book pages in my stash that, frankly, they're hard to use. I don't know. Anyway, this is a good way to use up your book pages. So what I did is I took some permanent glue stick and I just I put glue all the way around one page, all the way as much as I could, and a lot of glue in there so it will hold together. And I don't know, glue stick doesn't seem to be my favorite, but it works pretty well. And I decided I would use up one entire glue stick gluing these pages together, which I did. Then I added the second page to the best of my ability. Didn't have to be perfect, no big. And I pushed it down as best with a bone folder. And then I set them off to the side. I allowed these to dry before I cut them. But at this point, you can choose to stamp on it or you can wait. I waited. Then I took this page, which is 7.5 by 9.5. I knew I wanted a 3 by 6 inch tag. So I cut off about 1 inch on one side. Don't throw those away. I'm going to show you what else you can do with it. I flipped it over, lined it up at 6 inches, and cut off that edge. Now I have 3 inches if I cut it in half. I didn't want to cut it in half right away. So at 9.5, I have 3.5 inches too long from 6. So I cut 1 3/4 inch off of each end. Well, I cut it off of one end and then I lined it up to 6 inches. So with these strips, you can also make a tag out of. These would be 1 3/4 by 6 inch tag. So I put them in a stack, saved them. But if you cut them in half, you have a smaller tag that you can also use. So there's 3 different size of tags, at least with this size of paper. I turned it around and cut it at 3 inches. Now I have 2 tags. On these 2 tags, I don't like what it says. I don't like what it says on here. I don't like the wording. So I got out my ink, like so, and I got out some of my vintage kind of stamps. This is a ledger page, and I just inked it up and stamped it on my page, on my tag. And it seemed to cover up the ugly of what I didn't want to use anyway. You can continue to stamp over this if you want, but I thought that looked pretty cool. Then you can embellish this tag. You can cut the edges to make it look like a tag, or you can wait until you've fully decorated it So this is a way, but the back side didn't look any better. So I can continue to stamp and make it look like something. There we go. So it looks much better as a ledger. I also have some music sheet that looks just as good. So a music sheet to hide what's on there. The problem with this stamp though is it doesn't show up very well, but it's still there. Still looks good. And it works as a cover for the paper that's underneath of it. Now you might just have a stamp or a book page that has better writing and it just looks good with page. I have for example, this is just wording, and I can use this as it is just by inking the edges and then adding my whatever I'm decorating in my journal at the time. It looks good just like that. You can also give it a little bit of more discoloration by adding ink to it. And then, you know, when you decorate, embellish, whatever you put on it then can stand out. Decorate you know what I'm saying here. There you go. And then you just cut the edges and you have a decorated tag. Add some lace. It's the beginning of whatever you want to develop your tag into. So the point of this is to create a stack of tags that are prepped and ready to use when you're ready to make a tag. And these are 3x6 tag, which is pretty common. And I just put them in my little folder there. So when I'm ready to use it, it's ready to use. So I showed you this idea of using this as a skinnier tag, which it would then be 1 3/4 by 6 inches. And you can do the same thing with these. They're just a long skinny tag. And the same with these smaller ones, which are 1 3/4 by 3 inch. And just, you know, cut the edges off as a tag. And you have a really cute tag that was just made out of double book page. Mine doesn't have writing, but that doesn't mean yours wouldn't. You might have, you know, writing on each side and make a really nice tag, even if you just left it at like this, or if you decided you wanted to embellish it, you could embellish it with just about anything you wanted. This is a cup of coffee. You can embellish it. There you have a tag. And it was easy. It's just an offcut of the 3x6 tags. With the sides that I had here, I thought, well, you know, I don't want to throw them away. They're double and they're really nice. And you can fold them in half, open it. You can cut it or tear it. You can make it any size you want, any size, But if you're using a variety, I made a tag. Let me see where I did that. I made a tag with some very old paper, but and I used 4 pieces, and it was still falling apart. But if you use a variety of pages, that book pages, so this one's white, this one is a brownish color, and then you could have other pages that are maybe not as dark. You could have music sheets that you put together to make these tags. Whatever you use to make the tags and you cut it down, don't throw these away, because you can do a mass making of a, I don't want to call these things, mass make a straight cluster. Straight clusters are just what it says. They're straight and they're clusters, a cluster of paper. The offcuts really make really cool designs. So let me just show you one. And you can lay down a row and make a row of these, kind of like you can do your tags. The tags are ready to embellish any way you want, any way I want. Then I can add this book page here is so old. It's really got to be careful with it. But it's a way to use up your scraps after you've made a bunch of tags. And they look really, really cool. So you just begin to layer on your offcut, whatever you want to call it. And these are just pieces I'm picking up that are laying here on my desk. And I'm going to just create something different. You can add other ephemera or embellishments to your cluster here, or you don't have to. It can be whatever. You can add words to it. You can leave it at that. This is another one I created. So don't throw away your offcuts. You can create nice little tags, and then when you put them in your journals, they can just lay on an edge like that, and part of it can stick out, and it can just be pretty in your journal like that. So there we go. Everything is usable, and it just sticks out a little bit. Looks really cute. So give it a try. Make you some ready to go tags of different shapes, different colors, different book pages. Just double up the book page. It's a little thicker, makes a really nice tag. And that's what I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Hope you'll give it a try. And I appreciate you watching my channel. Have a nice day.